Hi, welcome back to Banker Pals Yarning. Today is Tuesday, October 15th. So when we hit noon today, then we will be halfway through October. It's crazy. So I only actually have 3 questions today. And I know I've answered 2 of them for sure. Sorry, it's very early here. I have answered them before on the Tutorial Tuesday Q&A. And after I answered them again, just because I guess I wasn't as thorough as was needed, which is fine. I don't have a problem re-explaining things at all, and I don't have a problem answering the same questions again. Absolutely no problem at all. But I would definitely suggest that you pop over to my tools of the trade. I will actually post it in the description so that you guys can just pop right on over there. It goes into a little bit more explanation as the differences between the tools. Now that's not as extensive in an answer as you guys are looking for, so I'll give you the answer here and then you can go over there and check out what's going on. So Jeannie was asking about the length of cables, and Brenda would like to know the different what I prefer between cable versus straight needles when it comes to knitting. So cable length of needles, honestly, I would suggest that you get a 24-inch, like 18 to 24-inch cabled needle. Now remember that cabled needles are measured from tip to tip, not the cable. If you are buying them, if you're buying them online, read the description of them, because it will explain the measurements for the cable itself as well as for tip to tip. If you're buying in store, I would definitely suggest talking to the attendant and buy them from a known, like a knowledgeable store. So go to a small knitting shop or a small yarn shop that sells needles and hooks and talk to them, because they should know their product. If they don't know their product, then you really should get a hold of the owner and talk to them about product knowledge, because product knowledge is huge in this trade. If you don't know what's going on in your store, you have a problem. So yeah, 18 to 24 inches is a good length if you're only buying one set or one needle. This way you have the ability to make not only small projects, but also larger projects. I find that a 24-inch cable needle is really great for pretty much everything except really large afghans. So if you're making bedspreads and stuff like that, or anything larger than a single bed, you can actually go up to a 36 for those particular projects. That's a specialty needle that you should order separately if you're planning on doing really large projects. Now, cabled versus straight. So if you're only buying one needle, right, you don't want to buy a set, or you don't want to have a variety of needles, get a cabled, just because they're the most versatile, and you'll never lose one needle. I have a tendency to just lose one, which I know it's weird, but it happens. And I know I've said it before, but there's a thrift shop just up the street from me that sells single needles. So that's a blessing for me. So cabled needles are great for your larger projects, as well as when you're knitting in the round. I prefer using a cabled needle for socks as opposed to the 4 needle or the 3 needle technique. It's just a preference thing, nothing else. Straight needles are great for if you're not knitting a lot. So if you're just knitting small projects like scarves or blocks, so like for this particular project that we're working on with Tutorial Tuesday, just a set, you can even get a set of double-ended needles and then just buy some plugs for the ends of them, because they're that long, right? And you can pick them up at the thrift store. There's always tons of needles at thrift stores. You can usually get them pretty cheap there. For a decent set of needles, I pay anywhere between $2 and $4, as opposed to buying needles in a retail, like new in a retail location, where you can pay, anywhere from $10 to infinity dollars. I've seen needle sets that are astronomically expensive. Now, granted, they're inlaid and fancy materials and blah 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 blah. And they're top of the line, but I'm still not going to pay $300 for a set of needles. Sorry, not happening. So depending on what you are planning on using your needles for will depend on what type of needle you get, whether it's cabled or straight. If you're planning on buying several different needles, straight needles are great for straight knitting. So if you're knitting, yeah, like I said, if you're knitting blocks or you're knitting scarves or you're knitting small throws, then straight needles are great. If you're planning on knitting larger projects, even throws, to be honest with you, a cabled needle is better because it actually carries less weight on one hand than a straight needle. So you can actually spread the weight across the needle, so you're supporting it with both hands, as opposed to having it all on one needle and having to support it that way and transfer over. So if to reduce strain, cabled needles for large projects, small projects, straight needles are great. So hopefully that answered the questions thoroughly enough. If not, shoot me an email. I'll try and give you as much information in writing as you can so that you can actually refer back to it. And again, check out Tools of the Trade because it does explain the differences between needles and hooks. So Holly was asking my preference in Tunisian. It's actually a similar answer to knitting needles. I have a variety of Tunisian hooks, both cabled and straight. I have a double-ended, I have a single-ended, like I have double-ended hooks, I have single-ended hooks. And again, check out the video on Tools of the Trade. Preference for me, I tend to work with smaller number of stitches for Tunisian, so I can't even really explain it. So I do a lot of entrelacs, so that's where you do a square and then a square and then a square and a square, and it works very similar to corner, or a really obscure granny square where you start in the middle and you go around and around and around. I can, if you want, I can go into more explanation on Tunisian entrelac and different. I can go into explanation and do a tutorial on entrelac if you're interested. But Crochet Crowd, Mikey and the Crochet Crowd, they actually do great Tunisian videos, both in instructional as well as informational. So Mikey actually goes over the history of Tunisian crochet. It's also called railway knitting. And anyways, I'm not going to go into details with that because I'll be here for the next half hour explaining it to you. You could just pop over to Mikey. I'll see if I can find the video and pop it into the description for you as well. So like I said, very similar to cabled versus straight knitting needles when it comes to Tunisian, in that if you're doing large projects, a cabled absolutely necessary, simply because of the weight. Tunisian has a tendency to be a thicker fabric, so it becomes heavier faster. And you can actually spread the weight out on the on a cabled needle, and all cabled hooks have a 24 to 36 cable, and it's measured in the cable, not the hook, because the hook is a standard crochet hook. And that's actually what I do prefer, is a bamboo crochet hook, just because it's less weight on my hands. That's why I tend to do Tunisian in smaller pieces, because the fabric does get very hard, very heavy. So a bamboo, you can get them at Walmart. I'm not sure if they're bamboo at Walmart. They're wooden, but there's no thumb grip in the same way. It's a smooth transaction. Let's see if I have it here. I think I took it in. So yeah, it's just a wooden hook. You don't want a hook that has a handle on it like this, simply because you can't push the stitches down down the hook far enough to make room for new stitches. And I know it's really tiny, you probably won't be able to see very well, but hooks like this that have the thumb grip in them, you can use them. Just understand that this will stretch your stitches slightly, which may not be a bad thing, because you want to be as loose as possible, otherwise you get curling. So again, depending on the project that I'm working on will determine whether I use a standard crochet hook, a cabled hook, or a straight Tunisian hook. So hopefully that answered your questions. If not, again, shoot me an email and I'll go into more detail for that. And I will pop Mikey's video as well as the Tools of the Trade video into the description. So let's head over to our block for today, and I will see you tomorrow. All right, so puff stitch for crochet. I am using a different yarn for this one simply because it's got a better stitch definition. So you're going to chain 30 as usual, 32, because we will be working in half doubles actually, believe it or not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. I'm only going to chain 10, 11, 12. Okay, and in the second, so you've chained 30, I've changed 12 just because it's quicker for me to show you on a shorter chain. So you're going to half double crochet in the third chain from the hook and each stitch across. La, 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 all the way across. I know I usually have my foundation row ready to go for you guys, but this particular one, it's just as quick to show you all the steps. Okay, so there's my first foundation row, and we're going to chain 2. And I don't use the chain as my first stitch, so I go into my first stitch here. So we're going to half double, just like that. And then in this stitch here, we're going to yarn over, pull through, it's 1, yarn over, pull through, that's 2, yarn over, pull through, that's 3. Now I work in 3s with my puff stitches. There's no harm in doing 4 or 5 if you want something that's a little bit more defined. So for this particular one, it will be worked as a double crochet instead of the half doubles that we have going on for our regular stitches. So we yarn over, we pull through all but 1 loop. So now we have 2 loops on our hook. Now some people do a slip stitch, so they pull it all the way through like this and then they chain to close it. I actually prefer using a single crochet to close it, because when I work my subsequent rows into my puff stitch, I find that having a defined stitch to go into is a lot easier than going into a slip stitch. So we have a puff stitch, we have a half double, oops, my hook slipped, there we go, and then we have another puff stitch, I don't know why my hook is slipping so much today. And close it. Now, some people also like doing a chain stitch between their puff stitch and their next stitch. It just gives a little bit more room, but it's not necessary. I don't like to, because I like to push my puff stitches up so that they're defined. Okay, so half double and then another puff. There we go. And then a half double. Oop. And then a puff. There we go. And then in this last stitch here, we're going to do another half double, just like that. Okay, and then when you push them forward on your right side, you can actually see how defined they are. So for our second row, so this is our 2-row repeat. What you're going to do is you're going to, in the first stitch, come on. Okay, and then you're going to do puff stitches in your, oops, I went in the wrong stitch there. In your puff stitches, you're going to do half doubles, and in your half doubles, you're going to do puff stitches, except for the first and last stitch. So your first and last stitch will always be a half double. So we're going to do a half double in this puff stitch, and then we're going to do a puff stitch in the half double. And then another half double. Okay, so you can see how they're offset there. Okay, so you're going to continue that all the way up, and you're going to do 24 of the rows with the puff stitches, plus your foundation, plus your closing row. Your closing row will be a row of half double crochets all the way across. So total of 26 rows. So 2 rows of straight half doubles and 24 rows of the puff stitches with the half doubles in between. All right, there you go. And we will see you tomorrow for We Learn Wednesday. Have a great day.